Open Minds Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Orin.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep, open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and today for you guys, I have a deeply philosophical and personal episode, all rooting from DMT and psychedelic use, and all the expanded insight that me and today's return guest have had on the subject, and all the different things that we brought into practice in our own life. But I think you guys will really enjoy this episode. It's a little bit different than a lot of the other ones that I've done recently, because in a lot of the earlier episodes, we got deep into personal philosophy, but I want to kind of bring that back around a little bit, and bring it to a point where you guys can kind of bring it into your own lives, and maybe even kind of connect some of your own guys' personal experiences. But yeah, I think today's episode you guys are really going to enjoy. I really enjoyed recording it, and I'm really looking forward to the next time I have this guest on, just because of how deep and personal these conversations get. But before we get into the episode today, we of course have to do news and updates and run through the front of house stuff. Number one piece of news and updates is I will be vending at Small Town Monster Fest 2. That'll be June 29th in downtown Canton, Ohio at the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel. Kids 12 and under are free. Everybody else, you guys got to make sure that you scoop your ticket for the event. And if you guys are planning on coming, let me know, because I'd love to be able to know you guys by name and face and be able to point you out. And maybe you can even come over and hang out at the table with me. We're going to have the full crew there this year. It's going to be me. It's going to be Orin. It's going to be Jenny. It's going to be Gabby. It's going to be the kids. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys out there. If you guys want to pick up tickets for yourself, you guys need any more info on it, everything is available down in the show description so that you guys can scoop that. And of course, make sure you guys mark your calendars. And moving to the front of house stuff, don't forget to follow Inquiries of Our Reality and Open Minds Media on Instagram and Facebook if you guys aren't already. Greatly appreciate that. And you guys can also get updates on anything cool, interesting, and new going on with the show through that means. And for video content, you guys can go and follow Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok. And if you guys want to become a member of the Open Minds Media Discord, you guys can join the discussion and have fun with a big community of a lot of awesome people, and keep expanding that community, of course, with you guys, because there's always room for you guys to come in and join the community. And if anybody has an encounter to report, no matter how big, no matter how small, you guys can report those to ommencounterreports at outlook.com. And depending on how many I get, you guys can send them in as text. You guys can even record yourself and send that in too. I want to be able to do some compilation episodes, as far as being able to throw in ideas, possibly even kind of mixing it up with Bizarre Encounters, so that Orin can hop in on that one and throw some of his ideas on a bunch of the different stuff that you guys are experiencing. But even beyond that, of course, if you guys just want to have somebody to talk to about your experience and you don't want it to be talked about on the internet anywhere, that's totally okay too. I am here to be a listening ear for you guys, to help you sort out your experiences in your head. And if you guys are close enough, maybe I can even personally come out and investigate it for you guys. But none of that will happen unless you guys report your encounters to ommencounterreports at outlook.com, or go to the link tree, fill this submission form that specifically says report an encounter. And if you guys aren't already listening to my other show, Bizarre Encounters, highly recommend that you do. A lot of fun over there with Orin, my co-host. A little bit different than this show, as far as it's us deep diving into a bunch of different topics. There are some interviews in the mix, but the format's completely different. If you guys enjoy our banter back and forth, then you guys will definitely enjoy Bizarre Encounters. And we also do another side show off of that called Bizarre Inquiries, where we take your guys' listener questions and let our minds wander past that. Usually it is dropped once a month on the main feed. The rest of them are a Patreon exclusive, but we're always taking questions in for that. So if you guys have any questions that you guys would like us to discuss, you guys can send those to me through email, Instagram, Facebook, any means of getting a hold of me. But we want to make sure that we get those Bizarre Encounters, and we can keep expanding the show and getting you guys involved with that. And if you guys want to support the show, a couple different ways to do so. Number one is to go and join the Patreon. Over there, I recently updated the tiers a couple weeks ago, so there's a lot of new benefits for the lower tiers and for the higher tiers. There is also a 7-day free trial for the $3 tier and the $5 tier, so definitely worth going and checking out. And another way you guys can support the show is through the OMM merch store. Over there, you'll get things for Bizarre Encounters, Inquiries About Reality, Bizarre Inquiries, and a bunch of other different designs that I do that are non-podcast related, of course. And if you guys want to, if you guys use code Cryptid10, you guys will receive 10% off of your order until the end of April. And if you guys go and join the Patreon, there are exclusive merch store discount codes depending on which tier you pick. So the higher the tier, the bigger the discount. So definitely worth going and checking out. And if anybody is interested in podcast production services, you guys can shoot me a message through Open Minds Media. Whether you're just starting a podcast, you want to start a podcast, you already have a podcast. I'm here to hopefully make your job easier, give you some advice, steer you in the right direction. And then another thing that I was going to try to expand into doing is for all the authors out there, if anybody is interested in having an audiobook produced, that is something that I would definitely love to be able to try to do. So if anybody's interested in that, hit me up. I can add background sound effects. I can record it in my voice, your voice, any voice that you guys want. So make sure you guys get a hold of me for all that stuff because it greatly helps me out as far as financial stuff goes. And got to give a shout out to all of the sponsors / friends in the community. Guys, if you haven't already checked out IKNOWSQUATCH, definitely go check them out for all of your squatchy gear needs. Always dropping new stuff. It seems like almost every week there's something new. So if you don't see anything you like currently, give it another week, and I guarantee you there'll be something else on there that you might really, really dig. And you guys can also go and check out Joe over there at Cryptoteeology for all of your wearable cryptid favorites done in a 90s kind of comic book style. A lot of my closet consists of IKNOWSQUATCH, Cryptoteeology. So if you guys ever see me posting pictures and you guys like my t-shirts, guarantee you it comes from one of those two. So definitely worth going and checking out. And Snarly Yow. Don't forget to go and check out Snarly Yow for a line of fantastic smoky cedar with a hint of mint, beard oil, beard balm, body wash, and beard shampoo. All natural products. I love it. I use it almost every single day for my beard. And I got to say, my beard gets softer and softer each day. And not only that, but Dave, a.k.a. Snarly Yow, puts on a lot of fantastic cryptid-related events near the West Virginia area. Most of the time, admission is free to all the events that he throws. So if you guys are somewhat near the West Virginia area, make sure you guys go and check out his calendar to see what events he's throwing on. One of which is the Cryptid Halloween that will be going on in October. Orin and I will both be there. We will be vending, we will be speaking, and we'll also be emceeing the event. So make sure you guys mark your calendars and come and hang out with us for that, of course. And moving into the affiliate links, for anybody that hasn't checked out the newest sponsor of the show, Oregon-ite, make sure you guys check him out. He creates a lot of fantastic pieces. Recently sent me a shipment of a couple different pyramids. I think that they are absolutely breathtaking as far as the work that he puts into these things. And if anybody wants to pick one up for themselves, you guys can use code OMM at checkout to receive 10% off. And of course, make sure you guys use the affiliate link, which is down in the show description. And to all the paranormal investigators out there, don't forget to go and check out the Chattergeist. It is the all-in-one paranormal investigating device, my absolute favorite. I recently had Barry on Bizarre Encounters. If you guys want to check out all the different stuff that he has working as far as the Chattergeist, all of the new updates, modifications, all of that awesome stuff. And if you guys decide to scoop one for yourself, make sure you guys use the affiliate link, and that goes back towards the show and helps me out greatly. And if you guys have any technical questions before you make that purchase, Barry is the one that runs the Dimension Devices Instagram page, so you guys can hit him up, and he'll be able to answer any of your guys' technical questions. And every single thing that I mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, for the second time, psychedelic researcher and author, Adam Butler. How's it going today, man?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me back on a full moon.
Yeah, man, talking about positive energy coming in on it too, man, because we were talking about how we did the dark show last time, so this time we got to do the positive show, and it seems like everything within the universe kind of lined up for it to be a positive show. Even you were saying your mindset before we started the show, you said you're good to go, ready to get into the positive stuff, and yeah, we can kind of expand on that and see where it goes like we did last time, man.
Sounds good. But the reflected light and the light within, both. We can
Ain't that the truth, man? And I guess before we hop into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, for anybody that may have missed the conversation last time, we won't go into it as in depth as we did last time. But why don't you let everybody know a little bit about who you are, what you do in your books before we get into everything?
So I believe you had me on for the first time to discuss the book that I recently published, which was Butler's DMT Field Guide. And we did kind of get into the bullshit part of my life and story that led me to that. But really, in summary, I wrote this book after shrooms and DMT helped save my life. It was all through my own self-destruction, alcoholism, narcissism, just treating myself like shit, that everything in my life crumbled. But with that, my life is the most beautiful, content, happy that it's ever been. I'm coming up on my 44th birthday, and I can honestly say the last 3 years of my life have been absolutely amazing. Now, full of normal stresses and because of all the stuff that blew up in my life prior, I definitely have a lot of work, but my ability now to see through the bullshit and to be comfortable in my own skin has allowed for every day to be great. So I think the first time we talked about some of the bullshit and darkness, and now hopefully we can talk about how we integrate the crap that we go through to better our lives.
Yeah, man. I mean, a good spot to start, I guess, for both of us would be the fact of kind of why we got into it in the first place, because it wasn't necessarily anything dark, at least for me, by any means. It was more so, again, kind of like your story, kind of getting somewhat over some addictions and personal vices. Mine more so is alcoholism more than anything. And people kind of think that, jumping from like one substance to another, if you're looking at it from that ground level, that it doesn't sound like it's beneficial by any means. But when you go from something that's a depressant that pushes you down, makes you feel worse about yourself, and doesn't necessarily keep you in a positive mindset, and then you switch over to something that doesn't have that feeling whatsoever. You don't feel like you're necessarily taking a substance like that that's damaging your body, but rather that it actually like expands your awareness, expands your consciousness, makes you aware of your actions towards other people around you, and also kind of gives you a new refound view on life in general, kind of feeling like you somewhat not understand your place in the universe, but are more comfortable with your place in the universe. And then from there, that's just an expansion of personal growth. Because I mean, at least for me, man, I used to listen to, of course, like a lot of stuff about aliens, UFOs, like all that kind of stuff. But what it really took was when I went through my psychedelic phase is when I really started getting into things like philosophy, for example. And once you start understanding different viewpoints of philosophy, not just one particular philosophy, but expanding into a bunch of different methods of philosophy, and then starting to figure out how you can take the best pieces of those and put them into your normal life and be able to improve upon yourself. That's honestly the beauty of like what psychedelics do, is that it's not pushing you down into a darker hole like other things would, but rather expanding you to want to build better on yourself and, for lack of a better term, do the shadow work, because most people are afraid to be trapped in their own mind. But after your first couple times in psychedelics, it almost becomes something that you enjoy, because then you can't escape the thoughts that you want to repress, and rather that you have to deal with them head on. And from there, you can actually learn to deal with them internally and make it so that when you have those stressors that come upon in the future, they're not nearly as bad as they were in the past, because now you yourself have figured out how to deal with it in your own mind versus other people trying to tell you you're okay, you're fine, you can push past it. Because it's just, that stuff helps for some people, but it seems like most of us, like psychedelic users, it's more so that we have to change from the inside, and we have to develop our own tools to be able to change from the inside. And a lot of the time it's like the doorway doesn't necessarily open until you kind of get into somewhat of psychedelic use.
Yeah, very, very well said. And internal, and you said that word, I think that's the key, is it's not some external solution. It really is being comfortable within your own self. And I think there's a huge distinction, and I come across that too, where, so you're not doing alcohol, but you're doing these other drugs. Not drugs, they're plant medicines, they're natural molecules. They're that term I don't think is the proper use. Now, should you not use heavy equipment using both of them? Yeah, probably. That there's some common cautions that you need to take, but everything about alcohol, and I would throw prescription pills in there, is typically to dull and to lessen your ability to take in information and data points. You certainly, you have less empathy, you have less sympathy, you have less ability to connect not only with yourself but with others. And all of those things take away from your ability to do what you just said, which is internally figure out what the issue is. And psychedelics do that, do the exact opposite. And I think there's other ways of quieting your mind. And I think we mentioned this too, about whether it be meditation, whether it be through prayer, a long walk in the woods. There's ways of being able to kind of tap into yourself and to have that inner dialogue that you need. It's just with today's society, there's so much going on in everybody's lives. Like today, I worked 2 jobs, just got in, just took a shower, just ate, like doing the same thing in the morning. When do you have time to really set aside hours and hours and hours or whatever that you would need to get into that meditative state where a cup of shroom tea or a couple of whacks of DMT, and you can get there in 10, 15 minutes. And I think that's the powers that allows people in today's society to be able to tap into something that was easy to do thousands of years ago because there wasn't so many distractions. But today it's tough with what everybody's got going on.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back. So let's hop right in. I mean, ain't that the truth, man? Is that most people don't even have the time to set alone to just be able to sit and just think, let alone actually try to take the time to set aside for them to be able to meditate or do something positive for themselves. And connecting in with what you're saying as far as like the socializing aspect, when it comes to like alcohol, most people think that it makes them social, but I don't think it's necessarily the case that you really think it is, because half the time you get buzzed enough, you don't necessarily even remember the conversations you're having with people. And more often than not, they either end up being very shallow conversations, or 2, they'll get really in depth, but they won't go into the positive aspect of things. It'll more so go into things that you're sorrowful about, where when you take psychedelics, I mean, a lot of the time, at least talking for me, I know there's a lot of people that go to festivals and everything and they're just crazy social on the stuff. But at least for me, I mean, it doesn't necessarily make me social in that moment, but it gives me a new found appreciation for others and everything that other people have to say, versus like alcohol. More often than not, you kind of get belligerent. You want to just kind of like talk out loud. And a lot of the time you're kind of waiting for your opportunity to talk. But when it comes to psychedelics, you kind of get into this mindset where you become an active listener, and you're not necessarily worried about projecting your thoughts to other people, but honestly, you just want to hear everybody else's story. And then it gets into this weird like puzzle kind of concept where, I mean, I feel like most people that have done psychedelics, it almost feels like everybody has a piece of the puzzle. And from there, it's like you want to try to put all the pieces together and kind of solve some of it. So it just makes you way more interested in what other people have to say on a deep level and not on a surface level, and really makes you want to connect with people on a deeper level around you, and not, again, just have those kind of like surface, shallow bar conversations.
And from somebody that used to have quite a bit of those bar conversations, taking a step back now and looking at it, it really is so shallow and repetitive and just bullshit. It's about weather, it's about sports, it's about jobs, it's about the most basic of shit, and it's the same thing over and over and over and over. Where the conversations I have, and not necessarily like, yeah, we're sitting having a bunch of shrooms together and sitting by a fire. It's just the normal conversations that I have with my friends are so deep and so profound and are so open to talk about love and beauty and just a genuine hug and connection, and it really super, super deep, not that surface bullshit level, because then it's reflective of yourself. And then and instead of just having somebody to wallow in your darkness, or to sit there and woe is me, pity, hey, I'll buy you a shot, you buy me a shot, you're actually having somebody there to help you hold that mirror up to yourself. And then you just find more like-minded people like you and I, and we have several mutual friends, and then that group's talks, and then you start writing books and reading books and having documentaries, and that type of deep dialogue is what I crave. I mean, you're not going to find it around a bar. Certainly not.
No, definitely not. I mean, honestly, the same for me. One thing that I've kind of noticed as far as like after taking psychedelics is the fact that like I almost have trouble having like shallow conversations, because it's like I don't want to have those conversations. So I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with you. Like I want to get deep with that. I want to hear your philosophies. I want to hear your theories on things. I want to hear why you are the way you are, and not just like what you did last night, because it's like that's not relevant to me at this point. It's like I mean, of course you want to hear that kind of stuff if it's a friend, just to kind of keep up to date with them and everything, but it's hard to have the shallow conversations because you just want to get deep with it, and you kind of
value your time to too much. You're not going to waste your time with fucking bullshit.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you just want to have the deep conversation everywhere. And that's where it gets into the whole idea about like expanding your consciousness. Because at least for me, I kind of knew that my brain kind of worked different, which I'm sure is like a common thing again with a lot of other psychedelic users. And it seems like a lot of us, it's almost like it's a ticking time bomb to the point where we're going to get into psychedelics and expanding consciousness to that extent. Because at least for me, when I was a kid, again, I kind of felt different than everybody. So I kind of kept everything internalized. Didn't really talk to a lot of people about a lot of the stuff that was on my mind. And in turn, a lot of people thought that I was dumb just because I didn't really talk. So I kind of wanted to be able to fit in with others because I didn't fit in with others. So that's kind of where I kind of fell down the path of drinking, was to almost like dumb myself down to be able to have these like shallow conversations with people. And then once I started taking psychedelics, it kind of expanded of like, why am I suppressing myself to try to fit in with others? I would rather kind of like raise above and raise the elevation of everyone else around me versus falling back into the trends that everybody else is stuck in, because clearly everybody for the most part is unhappy. And that's why they get into these trends that they do, is because they can drink and it makes them feel good for a little bit. But once you start taking psychedelics, it's a long-term effect in the aspect of, you know, it doesn't just make you feel good for that moment and then the following morning you feel like crap. Like you take a psychedelic and you feel great for the night. The following day you get the afterglow and you feel great. And then for the following weeks that go after that, you just have this like positive ambiance to you where it's like you don't have any room for that negative stuff. And it's like, of course, you'll sit and listen to a friend in need of, but for the most part, if you just have some angry guy at work, it's like most people kind of gravitate towards that drama because it entertains them and kind of pulls them away from their own life. But being on the other side of it, it's just kind of like, all right, I don't need that in my life. I'm going to avoid that and stay on my positive trend, because there's no point in getting involved with that, because it's just going to lower my vibration down to the same level that everybody else is on, which clearly everybody's trying to escape. And that's, again, why they use all of these vices.
And it's obvious when you see somebody that's seen the light, or however you want to see it, but or word it, excuse me. But it's very obvious when somebody has that inner contentment, and it's not some badass tough guy walk around with your chest puffed up. There are little old ladies that put off that type of confidence, because it's comfortable being in your own skin, and there's not going to be a person or situation that throws you off of it. And you mentioned about how you end your shows with words of wisdom. I was watching our first show back, and you said something. I wrote it down here. That the meaning of life is experience, and then you kind of went on to kind of go through that, and I agree. Where if you really think that the meaning of life is experience, you're not seeking happiness, you're not seeking money, you're not seeking any outcome. You're truly just enjoying that experience, being here, being present, being now. And whether it be a major trauma, major loss, that combined with psychedelics. So like in my case, I had the crazy loss, all the trauma and the psychedelics. But then I mentioned too last time how I took like a year and a half off and just traveled the country and just went to all the national parks and basically quit my job and just went and had time to meditate by myself. You do all of those things and you realize that life really is all about experience. So there's nothing that's going to sway me or throw me off, because every second of every day I'm just living for that experience. And that conveys if you're standing in the grocery line, that conveys if you're making love, that conveys if you're having a podcast interview. And maybe just the opposite. It also conveys when you see somebody that's wound up tight, that's miserable. Every time you drive, they're having road rage, every conversation's that political fight and about bullshit. I stay away, to your point, stay away from those people. And I don't make room for them, because it's just, it doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't go with my type of energy or vibe that I'm trying to put off and attract. And it's easy to, it's almost automatic. Those people just bounce away and get repelled. And then the good people get attracted and stick around.
That's kind of like where I'm at with it, man. It's like, even at work, man, most people don't think I'm very social, but then I get in these podcasts and it's like, I'll talk somebody's ear off. It's not that I'm unsocial or can't talk to people or anything. It's just the matter of like picking and choose who I want to interact with, because especially when you're like an empath and you kind of like take in other people's energies, it's almost like you have to be specific about who you choose to interact with. And going back into what you were saying about experience too, I mean, I'm definitely on the same method of you, thinking that no matter what way I go back to it, it seems like life, again, is about experience. And that's not always necessarily the positive experiences all the time either.
Absolutely.
Because most people want to do the whole YOLO thing, like, who knows if I'll live tomorrow? Let's just have fun today. It's not even like that. It's just a matter of, again, being present in the moment, no matter what you're doing. And even if it's a traumatic experience, it's an experience that people can't take away from you. And that's something you live through that makes you stronger. So in turn, it's not a negative experience to go through trauma. It's can result in a positive experience because now you're stronger having going through that. And when you kind of live your life that way, it almost feels like you kind of get into the flow state more often, that you're not watching the clock, you're not waiting for notifications on your phone, you're just present and existing no matter what it is. Even when you're like at work or something, doing the medial task that you don't necessarily want to do, and you just try to make the best of your time, man. You know, you'll be doing like a boring task, you know, be listening to a lecture, be listening to something about philosophy or something, and you just make the most of the moment, and you don't watch the clock. You just exist in the time that you're in and experience everything that has to be experienced at that time. The love, the pain, the happiness, the sorrow, like every last bit of it. Because again, at the end, material items can be taken away, but nobody can take away an experience. And if we are at the root just consciousness, and we go into some other life or we go into some other reality, whatever, like the one intangible thing that nobody would ever be able to take away from you is your experiences. And I mean, that's semi-proven in the fact of people doing like past life regressions, that no matter what has happened, you don't have any of the physical materials from that past life, but those memories and experiences are still existing in your head somewhere, or in the ether, in the consciousness somewhere.
And we all have that choice to have that perspective or that perception shift. So you can walk around every day and be miserable and stressed and anxious and pent up tight. Or, and I love hearing you just flow like that and say that beautifully, because that's exactly how I live. And you just worded it perfect, that you're in this almost steady flow state. So you're constantly taking in or appreciating the synchronicities in life. You're constantly being tuned into Mother Nature. You know, you said how you're naturally more empathetic and as well as sympathetic. I mean, I don't think it's corny at all when I say this, but like through every day, somehow, some way, I end up having tears and crying multiple times throughout the day, and not never a depressed and sad state, but from happiness, from a sense of gratitude. Or I'll see a random baby that you see driving by, and they just put off this beautiful smile, and you make eye contact. Or the other day I was under a tree, and it was just full of honeybees, and there was hundreds of them, and then just the sense of the vibration under the tree, feeling that energy, looking at wood grain, looking at the rock formations, the cloud. I mean, it's endless on things that can elicit goosebumps, and I experienced that dozens of times every day, all day, where and it, like you said, it's not all positive, and it's not all the rosy stuff. I also know when I get those gut checks, or if something happens, or if there is, God forbid, a traumatic event, I can now see with that perceptive shift that every time in my life I've had some bullshit happen, I can see that it either turned out to be an amazing blessing, that it ended up saving my life somehow, some way, it put me on the right path. So now when I have a traumatic event, even if it's a flat tire on the highway, well, maybe that saved me from an accident that would have been horrific. Everything that happens, I somehow look at it as a way of, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. What can I take from it? And it's such an amazing way to live. And then tie that in with, and I think we discussed this too, about the complete lack of fear of death that you get with that comfort level too. So combine those two things. There's nothing that can happen in the course of a day that will sway me off my path. And it's awesome, because you can appreciate everything, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, and you're not looking to change either one. You're not trying to make the light dark or the dark light. You're not trying to make the hunger go away. You're experiencing all of it, and it leads for an enriching life.
I mean, expanding off of what you're saying, man, I mean, one thing that I feel like not a lot of people actually take the time to really talk about is the whole fact of like emotions and being a male. And I feel like psychedelics are extremely beneficial in that aspect, because we come from the kind of generation where it's like a male's a male, boys don't cry, shit like that. And once you kind of take psychedelics and you almost kind of learn how to be a little bit more like in touch with yourself and comfortable with yourself, then you can really experience the little joys in life that most males would typically look over, such as like what you're you're saying, like a baby smiling at you. Most guys just kind of look over that and they just kind of toss it off. But it's like once you're comfortable with yourself and comfortable with the things that you're feeling and you actually allow yourself to feel those things instead of suppressing them off, then you just end up enjoying life a lot more. I mean, just plain and simple. I mean, even just like watching a TV show, for example, you know, like, if you get really invested in characters in a show and then they finally have like an episode where like two of the characters get married, for example, it's like most guys are like, oh yeah, whatever, fuck that episode, whatever. But then it's like being that guy that's in touch with the little moments in life and realizing what's really important. It's like you can now watch that and you might get like a little tear in your eye and stuff. And it's not like you're embarrassed of it by any means. It's just a matter of like, you can take in those little things and actually appreciate those little things, where I feel like our generation of males kind of skipped over a lot of that stuff unless you get into the expanded mind, deeper thought process. And I mean, even like within that, I mean, there's two different ways you could go too, where people have the philosophy where it more so is about controlling their reality and they kind of just take that typical overly masculine aspect of even philosophy. But again, with psychedelics, you can kind of be on both sides and you realize that there's duality and that everybody's personality has feminine and masculine aspects to it. And in turn, you can be more comfortable with your masculine aspects and also be more comfortable with your feminine aspects, and actually, again, be able to shed a tear at your friend's wedding, for example, or be able to just make faces back at a kid in public, for example. And just little stuff, man, that most people look over, but it ends up being some of like the most important moments to you in life, because weirdly enough, as like a guy, it's like a baby smiles at you and most guys don't really put too much thought into that, for example, but it seems like a lot of babies are drawn to like guys that have that like masculine physique. Maybe it's because of the fact that it's like a comfort thing. They feel protected, but you're not looking over that. You appreciate the fact that a kid can look at you and smile, and it makes you feel good about yourself. Like you have something that you can like offer the world besides just the people around you, but just like the greater world around you. And making just a smile at a kid, man, makes their day, makes your day, and everybody feels good. It just elevates everybody, man.
Absolutely.
We will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
They're still tied in. I love interacting with kids for that reason, because they're just true and pure and they haven't been tainted by society. But to unpack a couple of things, I think two things. To be comfortable with your emotions, and so different from feminine and masculine, but just anybody, guy or girl, to be connected to your emotions and to give them the respect that they deserve is huge. And a lot of people try to sweep shit under the rug, where good or bad, you need to listen to those signs that your body, your mind gives you. And you know, the positive emotions are one of them, and I think you shouldn't run from that. So lean into it. Your life would be certainly more enriched. And then, you know, as far as the differences between feminine and masculine, unfortunately, I think both females in today's society try to be overly feminine, and males try to be overly masculine. And it's really a beautiful blending of both that really has to happen. And I know once I appreciated not like truly the feminine aspects, like being a mother, giving them rise to life, just that nurturing aspect, what that entails. I started being able to appreciate my mother that much more, my sister that much more, my two nieces that much more, my girlfriend that much more. And then I started able to look at them to be like, well, what aspects of them do I really appreciate? And it's in the morning, my mother will make me lunch and make sure that I have everything that I need. The soft, loving touch of my girlfriend and make sure, hey, let me rub your shoulders and make sure you're okay. Now, I know how great that makes me feel. So now I try to do those things. I incorporate that into my life to do that to them. And it's not a matter of, well, Adam turned into a pussy. Look at him. He's being nice to his girlfriend, or he's doing this, or it's a beautiful way to express your entire self. And I embrace it. And you know, and this is kind of when then maybe I step back and act like a tough guy. I fucking challenge any guy to tell me I'm not masculine. You know, I'll whatever. I don't want to get too vulgar on the show, but it's like, whatever. I'll match anybody in any way when it comes to that. But I'll also be the first to sit there and talk about knitting with an old lady, or to say how cute a bunny is with a little kid, or to run across the street to pet a puppy. Why wouldn't you? You know, I dealing with dirt and construction and nastiness all day. Yeah, of course I'm going to go pet a puppy. Like, why wouldn't you take that break? But yeah, for a lot of people, Yeah, they'd be worrying about, well, what did that other guy say, or what will that person think, or but those are the people that are looking for external validation. Once again, once you're comfortable doing everything, or comfortable within your own skin, you just you lean into what feels good.
I
I
mean,
don't give a shit who you are, man. If you're telling me a little baby that's laughing and giggling doesn't make you feel good, then what the fuck, you're not human.
see, that's what I think it is, man. It's just the fact that most people want to play into the stereotype that they want to fit into. And I mean, especially nowadays, there's definitely a lot more of a blended aspect where a lot of guys are more feminine now and a lot of girls are more masculine now. And even within those, it seems like they're also just trying to fit the stereotype that society wants them to be, and they can't be comfortable with like their in-between self that, you know, you don't have to be overly masculine all the time, because half of what being a man isn't just the fact of, oh, I can, you know, protect my family, I can do this, but it also is about having that gentle hand with your family and being able to be their protector, but then at the same time being able to turn around and hug your kids and have a deep conversation with them about the way they're feeling and how they perceive reality. And I think that's a facet that gets missed a lot of the time, is that, again, the masculine is important, the feminine is important, but if you're overdoing it to a point where it's not even you, but it's stereotype of what society normalizes that as, then it's not beneficial for anybody. You're not helping the new generation to raise up. You're not helping them to get better. And with each generation, it's a transition where, you know, the females maybe get a bit tougher, where the males get a little bit softer. And you don't want it to go too far, of course, but you got to find that perfect balance on the in-between, where a man can be just as much a main component of the emotional health of his kids as the wife would, and vice versa, that the wife has just as much protective ability to be able to fend off something that was going to hurt her kids as the male would be able to. You got to find that perfect in between for both male and female.
And I think people appreciate authenticity and can easily call out when people aren't being authentic. And I look at people, when you look at them and you're like, oh man, what the fuck? Like, I go to the gym all the time. You see some of these guys walk around. It's like, what are you doing? Like, do you realize just how foolish you look as you're walking around, like trying to act like this, whatever it may be? But I think about how conflicted they must be. Could you imagine walking around being, and I say it like I've got it all figured out. I still have my own issues, but to be that concerned about what other people think, where you can't be your authentic self, where you can't project yourself how you genuinely feel, that you somehow feel like you have to, whatever, freaking look a certain way or act a certain way. I feel for that person, because how much energy does that take, where you could be doing creative things like art or making love or going to the gym or doing anything creative. You're spending all this time wasted trying to please somebody else.
I mean,
that's always a wasted energy. I mean, they'll never win doing that.
I mean, you're even missing out on experiences if you're doing that too. Because I mean, getting back into the whole concept that life is about experience. If you're always worried about what other people are thinking of you, then you're not going to be able to do those little things. Like, prime example, you know, a big tough bodybuilder guy, and there's like a little rabbit or something that's stuck in like a trap or something. You know, like the masculine male might just walk past and be like, oh yeah, bunny in a trap, ha 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 ha. But then it's like anybody that has that caring aspect to them, which a lot of those guys I guarantee you are suppressing, because they want to act tough in front of the other guys and just walk past it. But in the back of their mind, there's something screaming that's telling them to like let that thing out, like help it out, you know, take care of those little things. And even again, just like you were kind of saying earlier, like running across the street to go pet a dog. I mean, it's somewhat childlike in the aspect of like diverging from what you're doing to go and do that, which may not be seen as masculine to others, but it's still an experience that you're going to miss out on if you're not willing to just resort back to your natural self and just do the things that your intrusive thoughts tell you to do. Not intrusive in a bad way, but just like the little things. Like, again, a kid staring at you at the store, your first reaction is that you want to make like funny faces at him. But a lot of guys might skip over that moment because they don't want to look stupid to other people around them. But the guys that don't care and actually are content and comfortable with themselves will sit there and make goofy faces at a baby for 20 minutes in line while they're waiting, you know?
Yeah, that's to me, that's the meaning of life now, and that's coming from somebody. And we went in the last episode. somebody that used to have everything. So I went from having a bunch of houses and high paying jobs and fancy cars and taking vacations all the, multiple times a year. And I can tell you that shit can all get taken away instantly. That you can lose your job, your wife can leave you, your house can be taken away. I mean, if you have your health and if you have your a mental connection to your body, that's all you have sovereignty over. That's all you have control over. And that sense of power, once you really appreciate it, it filters into every part of your life. And it's awesome because that the happiness that comes from smelling a flower or walking through the woods or whatever, smelling a fresh thing of bread. I mean, it sounds, fresh thing of cookies. All of that is inherent inside of me, and no one's going to be able to take that away. Where 2 years from now, I could have a fancy job again and have a shit ton of money. 4 years from now, I could lose it again. With the stuff now that I have inside, is no one can take that away. And it's also completely subjective. I think that's where, sometimes like when I talk to my father about stuff, he's like, "Oh, what do you try to push your own way down people's throats?" And he thinks I have like this like psychedelic cult of like people that are following me trying to look for advice. And I say just the opposite. Like, it is completely personal, completely subjective, and I have no idea what's going to fucking work for you. But I can say some basic things that you have to look within, not look without. That you have to understand that your body is telling you all the signs that you need. And there are some common things that a lot of people are doing wrong, and there's a lot of things that people like you and I that have kind of maybe on a corrective path that you continue to do. And that being authentic, following your emotions, not embracing both the feminine and masculine, it's huge. And being comfortable being weird and unique. And I think maybe that ties into it too, where just be your own self. You can have role models and you can look up to people, and there are certainly attributes of people that you may want to emulate, but just if people just stick to being who they really are, that will shine through, and it allows you to live a happier life. And then you'll find your own group, you'll find your own door to walk through, and you'll find your happiness. I'm weird as fuck, and I'm finding my way.
Hey man, same here, honestly. And you get comfortable with just being your true weird self, and then from there, it's like the sky's the limit, man. Because it's like once you're comfortable with being weird, then you can truly fall into who you are, who you're supposed to be. Because more often than not, kind of getting into what you were saying with people, like viewing people as role models. I mean, role models are one thing, but when people like idolize other people, they start losing touch with who they are as a person, because rather than actually being their true authentic self, they glorify somebody else and want to be like that person. So they'll start dropping pieces of their personality that's their true authentic self because they like the way this person acts, or the way that this person talks, or the way that this person does this. And of course, as like a creative muse, you kind of take in a little bit of everything, and that's what causes you to have inspiration to do your own art and be whatever form that is, be it if it's musical, poetic, canvas and paint, no matter what it is. It's just a matter of finding your own true groove and not actually trying to basically just remake what somebody else is doing. Take the components of other things that other people have that you enjoy and create something that's completely authentically yourself from that, instead of trying to identically duplicate what that other person does. And that's the whole problem with like idolizing. And there's way too much idolizing nowadays, because I don't think most people are comfortable with themselves at all. So they would rather find a celebrity to idolize and act like, because then they think that they're going to have like a group of people that's going to think like them when they kind of fit into the group. And I mean, that's the other part to kind of get into as far as psychedelics too, is that you stop being concerned with the group. Like, you care about people as a whole, but you're not concerned with fitting into one specific person's group. You're more concerned with standing up for your own moral values and what you think is right, versus, my friends are over here and I don't agree with this stuff, but I agree with some of this stuff. My other friends are over here and I agree with this stuff, and I don't agree with some of this stuff. You kind of learn that you can be in the middle of that and say, I agree with this, I agree with this. Both you guys have good aspects, but I'm not going to pick either side or either camp, because my main goal and focus, as far as my moral values go, is for the betterment of everybody and not just a specific group of people while putting another group of people down.
And another way, that I think psychedelics help with that topic too, is that it holds a mirror up to yourself, where you can't, you could come up with some character or profile on social media, or you could lie to yourself, your best friend, your spouse, your therapist. You could project some sort of image that you want to project to society or whatever it may be, or you could go to work and lie to everybody. But there's no fucking way that you take 6, 7, 8, 10 grams of shrooms and you sit in a dark room and have the thoughts with yourself that you're going to be able to fool yourself. If you stole lyrics from a song and you're passing them off as your own, there's no way you're going to be able to sit with that. Well, I say that. Maybe there are some evil people that they're able to manipulate it like that. But the fact that
it's still going to eat away at them in the back of their mind, though. I mean, even if they are evil, it's still going to be sitting there.
Like, I've always lived my life where, and I don't have like one religious, plan that I follow, but I've always kind of lived my life that my Pepe, who was the most influential person in my life, is on one side, one shoulder, and God, whatever that may be, is on another. And I always I've lived my life thinking I'm always on camera, or I'm always like being looked at by these two entities and act as such, just with integrity, and character. And they kind of just, keeps you pure. But I also tie in now. I now face myself in my psychedelic state. So I know anything and everything that I do is going to be somehow looked at from that perspective. And maybe this is a really stupid, corny example, but it's an honest one. So there's a lost and found bin at the gym I go to. There's this really cool water bottle that's been in that lost and found bin for like fucking a month and a half. Now, clearly no one's claiming it. It'd be no big deal for me just to go take it. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's, people have had that chance to do it. But I'm going to ask the owner of the gym, hey, do you mind if I take it? It's been here for a while. If they say yes, cool, I'll take it. If they say no, fine. But like, I know in the back of my mind, I can't just fucking take that. Not because I'm going to get caught or somebody's going to stop me walking out, or even somebody would give a fuck that I'm going to take the water bottle. I know my next DMT session, I'm going to have to answer for why I think I was able to take that water bottle. And it's like, I don't even want to I don't want to have anything that my consciousness can question me of anytime I go into that psychedelic space. And it keeps you, well, it keeps me honest. Or if I have to be, I don't want to say if I have to be deceitful or dishonest, or if I have to do something that I whatever fucking need to answer to, I'll make sure that I'm comfortable with that stance. Like, yeah, I did this for this, and this reason. But I love that fact that it really holds you to yourself. Where I think I mentioned this too last time about how he was paying some brown professors, some psychiatrists, $240 an hour to basically bullshit him. And I knew I was going in there and bullshitting him. And it's stupid for me to say, why the fuck would you waste the time and money knowing somebody that probably could have helped you? But I was just going in there knowing that I was telling this guy a story and a narrative where now that would never be able to play out, because myself would stop myself being like, who the fuck you kidding? And definitely shrooms and DMT changed that aspect of me. And that's not going away. Now hopefully I can live for another 40 years or so. And that way of dealing with myself and with other people has benefited me so much that I can't see myself going back to either deceiving myself or other people. If you can't have an honest discussion with yourself, there's no way you're going to have it with another person. And then it starts with that internal dialogue.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, I was even going to mention, not to talk down by any means to anybody that therapy works for, but therapy doesn't necessarily work for everybody, because the problem with therapy is that, it's unbiased. You're paying the doctor to sit there, but people still want to keep their normal, like, ambiance to themselves, I guess you could say. Like, a lot of people won't necessarily go deep, or they'll overreact to things in order to get a reaction from the doctor because they want somebody to act like they're worried about them. Like, no matter what way you look at it, you're interacting with somebody else. So you're leaving stuff out and you're filtering stuff out in order to get the reaction that you want from that person. Even if it's subconscious, you don't even realize that you're doing it. But when you get into like psychedelics, and for me, for example, like, talking, of course, helps a lot of people, but for the most part, I'm not one of those people that can just like sit and solve a problem with somebody else. For the most part, I kind of have to sit in my own mind, figure it out for myself, and then I can kind of like vent and rationalize the thoughts going out to other people. So it's like the most pure form, I feel, of therapy is being able to be trapped in your own head and deal with stuff yourself, because people can give you advice on how to deal with stuff, and it's kind of your choice on how to deal with it. But if you're stuck in your own head and you come up with a solution on how to deal with yourself, that solution is specific to you, and it's only going to be beneficial to you from there. Where, again, like, it doesn't not everything always works for everybody, but there's no faking it when you're dealing with yourself and you're telling yourself exactly what you need in order to get to the point that you need. And there's not that filter bias that you're physically talking to another person, because every single thing, even memories that you've had or mistakes you've made in the past, you've never vocally said out loud to anybody. That's all in your own head. And you got to learn how to deal with that within your own head and maybe talk a little bit after. But I mean, for people that therapy may not work for, you got to learn how to like sit in your own mind and rationalize things in your own mind and learn what the best method to go about fixing and correcting that in your own mind is all yourself. I mean, of course, take in some ideas from different philosophies and everything and kind of balance it in, but there's no purer answer than what you come to for your own self. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back. So let's hop right in.
And without passing the buck onto somebody else or kick the can down the road to another time, it forces you to deal with it now. Yeah. But it's a lot easier just to keep drink another drink, take another pill, to go to watch another movie. Just, people don't want to sit with that quiet time. They don't want to do their hard work. If somebody's 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, they don't want to fucking say, oh, I got to change the way I'm eating and go to the gym. They're looking for a way out until you finally realize, you're your own worst enemy and just get out of your own way in whatever aspect of it is.
I mean, maybe it's a trait of people that are bound to take psychedelics at some point, no matter what. But I've never fully understood the whole concept on why people are afraid to be within their own head. Because for me, at least, like that's like one of the most prolific times is when I can actually sit in my own head and actually kind of like rationalize things. Like, when you're always trying to escape it, like you're never getting anywhere. It's still lingering in the back of your head and you're never actually going to get anywhere with it. So it's like, if you don't learn how to sit with yourself and actually understand things, then I feel like it's going to be almost impossible for you to be a fully adjusted person, because then you're pretty much spending your entire life trying to run away from something and trying to ignore something that's in your subconscious, when the most rational thing to do is deal with it head on. And then once you've overcome it, then it's not lingering in the back of your mind anymore. It's something you've overcome. It's something you can put on your checklist of experiences that you've dealt with and came out on top of. But if you never give yourself the opportunity to do that, then you can never honestly really see how mentally strong you are, because you're just going to keep running away from it instead of actually learning how to make yourself mentally stronger.
Yeah, you constantly have those things rattling around in your brain, so you can never be present. You can never enjoy the quiet dinner with your spouse because you've got all this noise. So I would say two things. To try to quiet that brain chatter that everybody has just from their day-to-day life. I think that's an important skill that people definitely need to figure out. But one thing that I think psychedelics can really help people with too is that, what about those events that you can't, there is no compartment in your brain to figure out. So some horrible thing happens where somebody close to you dies in a car accident, or you just get diagnosed with cancer, or whatever. You fucking fall off a ladder, now you can't work for 6 months, and now everything just got thrown off or in my case, I lost a job, I lost my house, I lost my relationship. I mean, my entire life went to fucking shit. So now, how do you get rid of that brain chatter? There's no compartment in your brain to even put it. You have no experience to lean back on to say, what do I do with this? And sometimes you need to create a new space in your brain. How do I deal with the loss of a child? Like, I can't even imagine what that would fucking be with. But people deal with that all the time. How, I have no idea, but it's because they find a new place in their brain to put that, where they can not forget about it, not say you're not processing it and that you don't, deal with the negative emotions with it, but you put it in the proper compartment. And whether it be the neuroplasticity or the neurogenesis or the freeing up of space in your brain, however the actual chemistry works when you use an assortment of psychedelics, somehow, some way it allows things to settle into the proper compartment. Or if a new compartment needs to be made, it allows for that space, and it allows you not to just constantly be worried about the past or the future, or to not go drive yourself crazy. And I know that's ultimately what I was doing. And on paper, I had everything lined up. There would be no reason why I should be going crazy. But it's very easy to let your mind just take off if you don't reel it in. So what's the catalyst that you need to reel it in? Is it something devastating that happens? Is it something beautiful that happens? Unfortunately, I think a lot of people, it's something bad or something traumatic happens where their life gets completely shaken up, and that's where I think a lot of psychedelic use is going to be important.
I mean, expanding on that too, I mean, that kind of gets into the whole thing I was saying as far as like therapy goes, that people can tell you tricks on how to get over grief, for example, but at the end of the day, it goes back into your own head again, that the only way that you're going to figure out how you can deal with grief is by figuring out your own method. And everything works different for everybody. I mean, more often than not, the one that has always been the most beneficial to me is when you have something negative that happens, you try to remember the positive parts about it. So if you have somebody that passed away, rather than continuously replaying the thought of them passing away in your head, you remember all of the great moments you had with them, so that rather than when you think about them, you don't go into that negative headspace on remembering that they passed away, but rather that you stay in the positive headspace of remembering all of the great times you had with them. And then you appreciate all of those times you had with them even more because they're not around anymore. And rather than having that typical just straight sorrow where you don't want to think about it at all, you may have a cry, but it'll be out of happiness for those happy moments and the fact that you might miss those happy moments. But in the end, it's like those are experiences, again, that nobody could ever take away from you. And you just have to outweigh the negative stuff with the positive stuff. And I know that sounds really hard for people when they're going through those things at that exact moment in time. But once they are able to kind of rationalize it and settle it in their own head, they just have to learn how to play it. And there's, again, two ways that people can go. Either one, when somebody passes away, they try their absolute damnedest to not think about them as much as possible. Or the other side, you can let your mind think about them as much as you want to, but you don't dwell in the negative parts of it. Like I said, them passing away, for example, if you're there when it happened, but rather all of the great moments that you guys had together. And then you can go about your everyday life where, you'll do something that reminds you of that person. And rather than being sad about it, you remember that person and you're happy about it, and you can miss that person and still be happy about it at the same time.
Yeah, you honor their memory. Yeah, once like anything, you don't run from it. You approach it head on. So listen to the song that reminds you of them. Watch the movie that reminds you of them. Smell the smell that don't. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. It's easier said than done. People aren't comfortable managing their emotions or appreciating them for what they are. But it's a healthier way to live.
And I guess kind of steering it onto a little bit more positive side. We've remained pretty positive for the most part of this, talking about philosophy and everything. But I know that you had some particular stuff that you wanted to get into that we didn't talk about last time, as far as like the love connection and stuff using psychedelics and DMT and stuff. So I'm thinking maybe we can kind of start swinging it that way into the more love and light side, rather than like the trauma into positive side of DMT and psychedelics. Yeah, no,
there's kind of two aspects that have been kind of at the forefront of my life recently, and that is psychedelic use in relationships, and I'd say intimate as well as non-intimate, and then just the general kind of feeling of the scientific shift of a sense of respecting the information that can come from different states of consciousness, whether that be in the dream state, whether that be in a psychedelic state, just that there's more beyond just this materialism that's been running our science for the last couple hundred years. And those two kind of shifts or ways that the energy's kind of changing, I think are really important to discuss. So maybe just the relationship aspect of it. So we've discussed kind of interpersonal relationships throughout the podcast. If you can do those with psychedelic use with the right person, I think the ability to not only have that personal growth and expansion, to have somebody hold that space for you where you feel comfortable, where you can kind of push your boundaries. You had mentioned, fear of being burnt by the hot pipe falling on you. I mean, those are real things. Even just to have somebody like that to safely take the pipe away. But the ability, so if we were saying how beautiful it is to see yourself like that and to experience all these different things. To do that with somebody that you love and appreciate, you can just expand and enhance that relationship on all those different levels as well. So, and she's sitting in my room right now. So Alicia, and she wrote Alicia's Angle in my book, and she was somebody that was really instrumental in my recovery. But we do psychedelics together, not to sit there and let's get fucked up and let's have a Saturday night where we're losing our conscious states. Not at all. We're doing it to try to mend our energies together. We're trying to do it to understand one another, to increase our awareness of not only our abilities and our goals and dreams. And it's just an amazing connection that we have with one another. And not to say we don't, actually we don't fight. We don't really have any issues because we discuss them like normal, rational adults. But the connection that I have with her on an intimate level is amazing. And then without even getting into the details about like the erotic ecstatic bliss and how shrooms can allow you to stay hard for hours and hours, or how cool it is to do some of these sexual acts on DMT. I mean, that's maybe all a personal thing. But I think what would be universal is, and here's where I'm comfortable being with my feminine, whatever, to snuggle with somebody in that psychedelic state after you've just made love, to feel comfortable, to feel embraced, to feel another heartbeat, to feel another breath, to feel the pulse of their temples against your, I mean, it's just such an amazing feeling. And if you can do it with somebody that you respect and you appreciate on the most profound level, man, it can solve a lot of the problems that I think relationships have, where people don't feel valued, they don't feel heard, they don't feel worthy, where some intimate sessions like that, I'm pretty comfortable they would work things out. But take it even out of the bedroom, how it allows you to interact with everybody you come across with. It's just, you do have a sense of empathy. You do put yourself in their shoes more often than not. I find myself, where before I used to be very judgmental and I would always have a response already, triggered and ready to go, where now I really take a step back and let them fully say their piece. I really want to listen and I want to understand. And now, I don't want to say like all of a sudden, but I'm having a lot of people reach out to me just to be like, hey, can I share your space with you? Can I share your words? Can I share your energy? I need you to calm me down. And it's a great feeling to know that I'm now interacting with other humans in a more calm, steady, truthful, authentic state, because I'm doing all of those things within me. And before, I used to be the guy that could either inspect your house or sell the house to you, or I could, I'd be the guy that would sell you the fancy marble or granite. Now I'm the guy that fucking calms people down because their energy is so strung out. And that's simply because I've quieted my own internal noise. So I think it just, the first step is healing yourself and understanding how you work. But then I think that the next step is, now what do you do with that? And, so how do you integrate all these lessons? And I think the next step is you apply that to being a good friend, a good husband, a good wife, a good father, a good mother, a good employee, all of those things. And it allows for just amazing interactions. But then tie it back into the thing we started off with, which is the experiences. So if I'm having, every interaction I have, no matter what, I'm thinking that person is in front of me and is crossing my path for whatever reason it is. It's for a specific reason. And I give every person I interact with that reverence, that they may be the next person that changes my life, or the next person that, I don't know, like, what a cool way to, once again, every second and every person gets this beautiful, radiant interaction with me. They may think I'm a fucking nut job, but I'm looking at them like, this is great. But I definitely didn't think like that 3 years ago. I was a fucking dick to myself and a lot of people.
I mean, it's definitely something that you really learn a lot about your partner as far as like your comfortability level, because if you take psychedelics and you're around your partner and you feel anxious or paranoid or whatever, then you know that there's something internal that's not working out correctly in that relationship. But if you take psychedelics and they become like your comfort net, which is like kind of what happened with me, because my significant other, Gabby, she doesn't do psychedelics or anything like that, but it's just a matter of like holding the space together. And it's like, I'd be doing my stuff and I would interact with her differently. Like I would say the things that are on my mind that I typically wouldn't say, even just like the simple things, like just, touching her hair, feeling on her back and stuff like that. And just like appreciating the textures, appreciating just her smell, her ambiance, just everything about her just being like around you. And in turn with that, you also kind of sort stuff out in your head and you really figure out why you truly love that person, because you start kind of breaking stuff down in your own head on like how that person makes you feel when you're in that state. And for me, at least, I've learned about myself that one thing that I strongly appreciate about my significant other is her mothering abilities, like her motherhood to her, because she just like releases this like comfort area around her where she's just, it's hard to be in a bad mood around her. She just makes you feel safe. She makes you feel comfortable. And then you can start kind of resorting that back also to like past trauma in your life that makes you kind of understand like why you pick those specific things in a partner. And you just get like really, really deep with the aspect of like why you chose that person, why you guys cross each other's path, why you appreciate that person so much more. And even if the other person isn't necessarily like, again, taking psychedelics with you or anything, it's like you can come to that. You can actually learn to project what you need to say properly out to that person. So in turn, they feel more appreciated, and they also feel appreciated because they can share that moment with you, because if you're somebody like me that doesn't like doing psychedelics around anybody, if you have that one person that you like doing them around, like that's something special to that person, because that means that you share a comfort level with them that's almost inexpressible. That because it's like I can't fully even put it into words, like the feelings and the comfort that I get from being around her when I'm on psychedelics. It's like I would rather be around her, even if she's in the other room sleeping, than off on my own somewhere, just because of like the aura and energy that she brings. And the fact that like, if you get too far off in your own head, which sometimes you definitely do, and you kind of need to be harnessed back, you at least have that like tether to the real world that again, she just makes you feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
And you maybe appreciate people's quirks a little bit more. Like I know in my past relationships, I would be so nitpicky about just these unique, subjective things that these women would do. Where now, like everything that Alicia does, I think is cute or funny or whatever. Where, like I said, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, I could twist it where that could be annoying or that would be whatever, or like it. So you're saying, you're in that space and you're rubbing her back or feeling her skin or taking in her entire essence, like, and you're appreciating how beautiful she is and what amazing energy and what that body's able to do. And like, so are you really going to bust her balls about leaving her shoes not in the right spot, or that her keys aren't hung up at the right spot, or that she put the milk in with the fucking handle pointed to the wrong direction, or like, but unfortunately a lot of people wake up and they look right beyond all the beautiful, wonderful things of their spouse, and they'll harness in on the one thing. I told you not to do that. Don't do it. And I was that guy that I had a lot of beauty in my life that I chose not to see it. But that all comes. What do you see when you look in the mirror? And I saw and I didn't see the beauty and light that I was. So how could I see it in other people? But yeah, it's great when you can let your guard down enough to let another body's energy into yours, and you just mend with it, and it's awesome. I mean, you only want more of it.
Going off what you said with like the quirks and stuff, I mean, one thing that I realized about Gabby was the fact that before I really took the time to really understand it, like I was just always drawn to her because I don't know, she's just like a shit talker. That's like the best way to describe it. Like she's brutally honest. And it took psychedelics for me to realize that the reason why I appreciate that so much about her is the fact that most people that I dealt with in my life, like usually kind of pussyfoot around stuff, and they weren't honest and straight to the point. So it's like sometimes it would get annoying to me, but after I like really broke it down in my own head and really understood why I appreciate it so much, it stopped being annoying to me whatsoever, because it's like I would rather have that brutally honest person that's going to tell me like, oh, you look stupid, versus like the person that's going to pussyfoot around and be like, oh, you look great, and let you go out in public looking dumb. And I mean, even just some of like the rude comments and stuff, it's not necessarily like rude comments because it's all meant in love, and you just kind of see stuff from a different perspective. That like the rude comments and the shit talking and stuff like that, it makes it so that you have a more open, honest relationship. So in turn, it's like there's no fighting because you guys get the brutally honest stuff out that you need to say, and it's just like a regular exchanging of words versus stuff that bottles up and then hits at that one moment. And again, sometimes you just have to step back and see stuff from a different perspective to really understand again, why you chose that person, why you like so many of their qualities, and even the qualities that annoy you. If you take back the time and look at it in a different perspective, you'll realize that they've never annoyed you at all in the first place. It was actually one of the things you appreciated the most about them. Maybe you just didn't understand why, and that's why you had this internal battle back and forth. But once you understand why, again, you can fully appreciate every single aspect of that person and look past the little quirks. And again, find the little quirks to be cute sometimes. Like, not to embarrass her too much, but my significant other, when she like talks and gets really excited about stuff, she used to have braces, so she kind of gets these like little like spit bubbles in the corner of her mouth, and it was one of those things that I used to kind of like stare at it. But once I realized like just little quirks, like how cute it is, you know what I mean? Then you're like, you almost like enjoy that kind of stuff, because then it's almost like a sign that you can tell how that other person's feeling because you're paying attention to those little tiny things. And you notice that, you know, she only gets the little spit bubbles in the corner of her mouth when she's really excited talking about something. So then it's like, then if you notice that she's doing that, then you can get farther and deeper into that conversation, because you can pick up those emotional cues on why she's so excited about stuff. And that's the other aspect of psychedelics, man, is that you notice those little subtle things, and it almost makes it so that you can understand somebody's personality on an extremely deep level, where you'll notice every little tell that they have, no matter what it is. Not even just like lying tells like most people identify, but just like little happiness like things, like maybe she'll like wiggle weird or something like that if she like gets excited about something or whatever. You notice those things that you typically would look over because you're not spending the time just to hyperfixate and focus on your significant other, because you're too busy and concerned with the hustle and bustle of the material world.
Yeah, in every aspect of your life, you're present. You're joyfully present, mindfully present. Not some dumb state where there's, it's not a matter of don't work, don't have stresses, don't have a job, don't have bills, don't have any responsibilities, and just sit there and just have a blank mind. That's not it at all either. It's just, it's whatever task you're doing, do it fully and understand that that's where you need to be. Yeah, that's awesome though, that to have that type of experience with another person. I know it's changed my life, and maybe, but I know what I want to say too. So we're saying how beautiful it is and how lucky and blessed it sounds like we are, but also psychedelics may show you just the opposite, to be like, I need to get the fuck out of this relationship. This person is horrible. This person, I don't need to be with this belligerent drunk. I don't need to be with this narcissistic asshole. I don't need to have this stepmother or stepfather talking shit to my kids. I don't need to whatever. And I think you take in any aspect, you take the power back, whether it's with a job, a house, a relationship, and whether that means lean in fully or back the fuck out. But like I said, you can't lie to yourself. You're either going to be like, no, I need to bounce, or I need to change. But you definitely you don't have those fake bullshit conversations of just everybody drink 2 or 3 or 4 bottles of wine and go out to dinner and laugh and call up the friends, see what you're doing this weekend, post it on social media, act like everything's good, and then you get the knock. Like I did, literally, your whole life's fucking destroyed by one knock on the door because you didn't have the balls to confront it in the first place.
I'm glad that you brought that up too, because kind of connecting into something with my own personal life, that it took me going through psychedelics and actually understanding a different perspective to really get a grasp of this. So like, I don't talk to my mother anymore because she's just a toxic person all around. And psychedelics kind of get you to a point where you realize that like blood doesn't necessarily make family. And if somebody causes more negative in your life than positive, like it's okay to like let things go. That's the other aspect of psychedelics, is it also teaches you how to let things go that you don't need in your life. And realizing that like, because when you're in your vices and you're kind of just going down that path of alcohol, pills, anything like that, you don't necessarily realize that some of the people that may have been your best friends at those times are actually some of the worst people to have in your life. Because like a prime example, when I was going through drinking and doing everything like that, like my mother was one of the people that were like giving me her pills, buying me alcohol, hiding stuff from my girlfriend, doing all this kind of stuff. And it took getting into that psychedelic phase, because when I was in my alcohol phase, of course, that's like a positive thing. It's like, oh yeah, this person will cover for me. They've got my back.
Yeah,
They've always got this for me. Yep. Not realizing that they're actually just enabling you to not actually grow and actually get to the point that you need to be. And once you actually realize that those people aren't beneficial to have in your life, you can let them go and not feel remorse for it, or have that voice in the back of your head telling you that like, oh, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Because in your own mind, you've completely rationalized and understand why you don't want that person in your life anymore. Because if you're not actually breaking it down on that deep psychological level, then you're always going to have that wondering in the back of your mind of like, oh, she's my mom. I need to have her around because she's my mom. But that doesn't mean anything if the person is just a bad person for you to have in your life and isn't going to push you down the right path.
That's the tough realization to come to, though. I can only imagine how tough. But if that means you're a better everything, husband, father, worker, that's what you need to do. But maybe, and this is a good kind of segue to talk about the other thing I'd like to discuss. So, like the power of the information that you can get in a psychedelic state with dealing with psychology or dealing with past childhood trauma or dealing with self-awareness, all of those things. I think now there's a lot of studies and a lot of research and a lot of people putting their time and energy into, yes, the treatment works. There's a lot of benefit that can come out of it. But expand that further to other realms of science, other realms of medicine. I think there's this kind of like consciousness shift, or this shift in way of thinking where it's okay for people to have PhDs, and it's okay for people that are writing in scholarly journals and things like that to talk about the power of consciousness, to talk about how things aren't all about material form, and that there is vibrational energy that kind of is not more important, but there's way more to this world than Newtonian physics and kind of what's been spread the last few hundred years as this is it and there's nothing more. And I'm just happy to be part of this kind of small research, well, not small, this big research group looking into these other kind of areas of consciousness, and having people that are way smarter than I, that have been researching for 20, 30, 40 years, that have written 10, 15, 20 books, that have the smartest of friends that they're interacting with, and now I can study their work. I just think it's a really cool time to be studying consciousness, to be inquiring into our reality, and to giving, like, I've spent hours and hours at whatever, 7 minutes a pop. It's been hours into this DMT space, interacting with DMT entities, beings, myself, my future self, aliens, all sorts of fucking weird shit. And 20 years ago or 40, maybe I would have been laughed at, to be like, wow, this guy's really lost it. Where now there are very educated people that would be like, well, he maybe said it in a colorful way, but there's actually thousands or tens of thousands of other people that have said pretty much the exact same thing. And I think now our voices, whether it be people that are going into DMT states, whether it be people that are having epileptic seizures, whether it be people that do lucid dreaming, the information that we're getting from these different states of consciousness is valid and real and can be helpful, whether it be help deal with past trauma, whether it be help understand fucking UFO technology, whether it be help push humans to the next level of our evolution. Somehow, some way, it's not going to be relying on materialistic science to figure it out. And I think that's the cool thing. And I don't know, and I'm not educated enough in any one of these, areas of science to be like, oh, this is the answer, but it's going to be fun to sit back and just study. Like, my intellectual curiosity in so many different tangential rays are going fucking nuts, because this is a cool time to be alive.
I mean, at least with our generation versus past generations, I think one of the main benefits that we have is that the whole bad connotation behind psychedelics has kind of been depleted with our generation. As far as like our parents' generation, they were growing up with like the government being fully aware of the capability of psychedelics, of astral travel, of all of these things. Because, I mean, you go back into like the old MK Ultra days when they were just like dosing people with LSD, trying to see what the possibilities were for it, or doing all of this advanced astral travel research and stuff. Like, of course,
millions of dollars into it.
Yeah, like they're
years and years and years.
They're trying to figure it out for themselves because they think that it can be used as some type of like war tactic versus So in turn, it's like they don't want people to become aware of that kind of stuff because they don't want them to get ahead of their research for this kind of stuff. So for years, man, they demonize all of this stuff. Most people from like the 60s and 70s, like you mention LSD, and the first thing that comes to mind is like the LSD cults and like Charles Manson, for example.
Jumping out a window.
Yeah, like
everybody's going to flip out and fucking, yeah.
They keep everything seeming like it's a lot worse than it is, or even like the whole story that everybody said that, oh, well, this guy thought he was a glass of orange juice and he spent his entire life thinking that he was a glass of orange juice, and then he had to make sure he didn't spill. And I mean, even just simple like the psychedelic mindset as far as like communal living, for example, they even try to demonize that with the whole concept of cults, because most people, when they think of community living, the first thing I think of is, oh, that's a cult. That's some type of cult. Like, they are aware of where all of this mind expanding consciousness research could go. So in turn, they try to control the narrative back in the day to make it seem like you guys don't want this. You guys don't want this. So they could do their research in the dark for it. But now, because of, again, the grasp for knowledge that everybody has now, we're fully aware of this stuff that they were doing in the past. And we actually realize that the reason they were doing this stuff is because they see the potential of this kind of stuff. So in turn, they try to deter us away from this stuff, but in turn, they push us more towards it because we want to figure out the same stuff that they are trying to weaponize, and hopefully figure it out before they do, so that it can be used in a positive way instead of a negative way. So now that everything's kind of coming more to the forefront, I mean, I'm kind of curious what they still might be doing behind closed doors. But if we keep it in the positive mindset in the forefront and get rid of that old connotation that psychedelics are bad for you, then we're just going to expand as a society. Because I mean, even breaking it down to a scientific level, like alcohol, any prescription drug, meth, all that stuff, crazy damages your body. But when you get into psychedelics, they don't have damaging effects on your body. They work extremely simply, as far as like the little molecule will basically sit on like your melatonin receptor, and as soon as it's done, it bink, gone out of your body. Like, there's no sign of it. Like, there's no negative aspect to psychedelics in your body, and people are finally starting to realize that. So now it's like, of course, you can go off the deep end. You always have to worry about like research drugs, all this other weird stuff that isn't pure that they're actually messing with. But if you're sticking it to the natural stuff, you don't have to worry about harming yourself or regular use having negative effects and harming yourself. And we've realized the fact that, you know, you talk about like the old deadheads and everything, and you're like, oh yeah, their brains fried out. I think that was a narrative that was created too, because they wanted everybody to think that all of like the Grateful Dead fans, all of them were absolutely just bonkers out there crazy. So again, people would stay away from psychedelics, and they can kind of have this controlled mass of people that would be the people that's speaking out about them, all just following this band around instead of actually interacting and doing stuff in front. And I mean, you kind of see that even now, that it's like there's two sides of the psychedelics, kind of like we were talking about earlier. There's the people that go out and they want to go to a festival and socialize, and they want to feel this free love feeling, which again, that's totally okay, but it's not doing the maximum that it could be doing. Because if you have all of these free love ideas, these community ideas, the way that life should be led, if you're staying within your own small community and just traveling around and not actually speaking your message out to the rest of the world, then you're just doing the same thing they did back in the 60s. They're just staying in pockets. It's not expanding to the consciousness of humans as a whole. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. And we are back. So let's hop right in.
Yeah, I think you mentioned, you know, our generation. I'm a little bit older than you, but I'd like to think that, like, once some of, like, you definitely, the people my age and younger, they're not going to grow up with the same framework of the government's always right, science is always right. Listen to everything that comes down from the government or the state. You have to listen to. People are kind of more, and I think that COVID really backfired on a lot of that. COVID really, people stood up and was like, fuck this, I'm doing my own thing and I don't give a shit. And I think that mentality, I'd like to think that there's less inclination just to be the mindless sheep that just follow what people say. I know the more people like me and you that have this kind of awakening of just no one's going to sway me to fucking do anything, let alone something completely stupid and foolish. And I think the hypocrisy of laws and government and shit like that just get the spotlight shown on them pretty brightly when you do the psychedelics. So I don't know. I think
it goes back into that whole idea of just being more aware of your surroundings, because it's really hard for the government to lie to you when you're not just looking at the blank message they're projecting to you, but you're actually seeing everything as a whole past what they're trying to tell you.
And now there's so much information, and good or bad, obviously you need to decipher what's real and what's not. But it's going to be tough to suppress all of the positive stories. I mean, how many veterans you need to come back that took ketamine or shrooms that said it helped with their PTSD. I mean, how many stories like mine do you have to say where DMT helped with suicidal thoughts? How many, like, I mean, there's that, because they're going to become a kind of critical mass point where you can't go back. Now with anything, can it be abused? Can it be misused? Can it do damage? Absolutely. Would I even say that psychedelics is for everybody? Nope. It's probably not for half the population. There's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do it. But I can guarantee you the answer isn't what most people are doing, which is just running from their shit. But I like I said, there's a lot of great courses now in different colleges that are not only teaching psychedelics, but just plant-based medicines, holistic health. Instead of just pumping chemicals into your body, it's how your body responds to how everything's connected. Kind of more going back to some of the ancient knowledge and the Eastern philosophies, where it's not just mask it, pump it with a chemical, and shut up and do it again next week. It's no, fix the problem. And like I said, it's almost like I'm challenged on what book do I read next, what podcast do I listen next, what person. I feel like I'm finding all of these educated people, and it's like I'm just consuming all of their information, and I don't see it going back in the other direction. I don't automatically, or I don't see it turning into, oh, these are bad for our consciousness. This is gonna dumb down our population, or I only see it going in an exponential curve where this is gonna open up the way humans should be, which is connected to one another, connected to Mother Nature, not hoarding resources, loving, not hating, all of those things that could make an individual's life enriching and positive and wonderful, a family's life, a community's life, a fucking planet's life. And clearly what we're doing right now is not leading us towards that. So I think psychedelics will have a big part of the next step. And not the next step in human evolution, whatever the fuck it is. It's not continued self-destruction, using our resources inappropriately, and everybody fucking over one another. That's definitely not going to lead anywhere good. So I mean, happily share my stash with as many people as they want, and let's change the world, man.
I mean, even within psychedelics too, something that kind of old views going into like modern views. In the past, psychedelics are all kind of looked at as the same thing. And like you were saying, psychedelics aren't necessarily meant for everybody. But even within psychedelics, not every psychedelic is meant for everybody, meaning that somebody can be totally fine with mushrooms and not be fine with LSD, or totally be fine with DMT and not be fine with mushrooms. Or, I mean, even if you're kind of expanding the whole idea about into the possibly a little bit more bodily damaging psychedelic aspect, as far as like Molly goes and like ketamine and everything goes, everybody kind of has like a different feel for what they need, I guess. So it's like different medicines for different people at different times. So it's like you kind of have to figure out which one works for you, which one you're comfortable with, and which one isn't just like a party drug for you, but rather something that you can use beneficially for yourself. So like, as far as like the way I've kind of broken stuff down, depending on what you need it for, mushrooms, it seems they kind of give you more of that natural, connected with the earth kind of feel, where when you get into LSD, it kind of gives you this almost like a futuristic kind of feel, where you feel like you can just like connect with the future and kind of know what path you're kind of going down. And then when you get into get into like ketamine, for example, it kind of like throws you into your own mind, where unlike other psychedelics where you have that physical energy, you want to get up, you want to run, you want to do whatever, ketamine will just knock you down so that you can actually just sit in your own head and be comfortable and almost forget you have a body and just kind of almost exist as like a consciousness. And then when you get into like Molly, for example, at least for me, I get like deeply philosophical when I do Molly. Like I'll start kind of pulling apart different aspects of different people's personalities and understanding people on a deeper level, even if they're not necessarily sitting there trying to tell me something on a deeper level. Just you pick up on certain things, like somebody saying like, my favorite character in this show is this person. And more often than not, people's favorite character is either one of two things, either somebody that they feel that they are like, or somebody that they idolize and want to be like. So it kind of gets you in that different mindset, depending on what you're trying to do, depending on how you're trying to grow yourself. Kind of depends on which psychedelic you want to take. There isn't just one rounded one that works for everything. You kind of have to figure out what aspects you need to work on. And then from there, you can kind of assess which psychedelic is going to be the most beneficial for you and your mindset and where you need to go.
and do your own research and do thorough research and vet people, and don't just listen to me, and don't just, well, like, really listen to your heart, listen to your intuition. I agree with you that it does seem that these individual molecules do call each person when needed, how needed. Um, but that's where they're for the person that's seeking this information, that's doing it with the right intention, that genuinely wants to help themselves enrich their lives. There's as much information and resources as you need, and from there you can make an informed decision, whether that be to lean into psychedelics or not. Whether it be to say, I want the benefits of all of that, but I think I can do it through meditation and prayer. But whatever method you need to do to quiet your own internal dialogue and get to a point where you can be content, happy, live present, that's I hopefully the message of this show, and hear the words of wisdom. Whatever it takes to be content and happy, and each person knows that individually. Your best friend's not going to tell you, your spouse isn't going to tell you, your therapist certainly isn't going to tell you. You need to figure that out for yourself, and however you do that, it's so empowering and so comforting when you finally quiet that inner chatter in your brain, when you listen to the stress signs in your body and you actually address them properly, to have everything running the way it should, to actually be present as a human, and to really have that experience, and to know how fortunate you are to have that experience. And this is from somebody that came very close to fucking taking their own life, and not wanting anything to do with that experience. I feel like now that I have a second chance at it, man, I fucking appreciate every scent, every feel, every texture, every possible interaction. And it's not because, I fried my brain on DMT and he fucking said fuck you to the world. It's not that, because I've met so many different people, young, old, male, female, that have so many different types of stories, but their contentment is the same, their joy is the same, that sparkle in their eye is the same, that same empathy and sympathy, the desire to help one another. It's a universal feeling, and it's powerful, and it's beautiful, and it's obtainable for anybody if you just look within and deal with the shit that needs to be dealt with.
Really teaches you how to observe the inside and observe the outside, and make assessed decisions based on what's happening internally and externally. And coming back to the root of it, like, everything starts internally. I can't say that enough. And unless you learn how to deal with yourself internally, figure out how to work out your own mind, then you're never going to be able to portray and push out that positive energy to everybody else. Because if not, you're just going to end up being a shell, which more often than not, it seems like a lot of people do. Prime example, comedians, they make everybody laugh, they make the world happy, but inside they're some of like the most deeply depressed and disturbed people. And maybe psychedelics could have saved some of the best saved some of the best comedians if they would have used them properly. And it seems like, at least for like the modern day comedian, it seems to be something that's regularly used within comedians. And maybe that's why comedians now seem a lot more level-headed than they used to in the past, where they'd come out on stage, make everybody laugh, and then they'd be sitting in their room drinking, doing cocaine, all of that kind of stuff. Now you have all these modern comedians that are not just making people laugh on stage now, but they're going on podcasts, they're going on Joe Rogan, whatever, and they're talking deep about philosophical ideas because they've learned how to be an all-around good person inside and outside. And they started with the inside, and then they built that up to the outside. Or maybe it started from the opposite for a lot of these comedians, that they wanted to make other people laugh because they felt so bad on the inside. And it took to a point where it got so bad that they realized that for themselves, started using psychedelics, and then they expanded their consciousness and awareness on the inside. So now, not only can they make people laugh, but they can also make people think on a deeply philosophical level, which honestly I feel like is the root of comedy to begin with, is that you're trying to help people rationalize and feel better about their own bad situations. And if you can't do that from a positive light, then you're not necessarily helping or benefiting anybody. But if you are able to do that, then you can take observational humor to make everybody feel good, and also leave little trickles of philosophical ideas in people's heads that they can take home and bring them into their own life. And in turn, watching a comedy show can not just be about a laugh, but also kind of helping you grow and develop because of other people being enlightened and being aware of these concepts.
Yeah. You turn the bullshit into something good. And, I'm not here. I don't think anybody would ever say, oh, life's going to be easy and it's always going to be a cakewalk and it's all fucking rosy. Absolutely not. But you don't hide those traumatic events. You share your rawness. You look at it from an honest standpoint. Yeah. So once and I think comics do a great job of that, because if you're able to look at yourself and kind of make fun of yourself and have an honest view of how you are, you can probably translate that into an honest view of how reality works, or how society is. And like I said, a lot of people don't want to do that, and that's where they turn to comics as a release too.
I mean, you got to turn your traumas, or your vices and traumas, into passions, because that's the only way that it's going to help and be beneficial to other people. Because if you take your traumas, you take all the things you dealt with, and you create it into an art form, even if it's just a podcast, people just being able to listen in and feel like they're connected with people. You're creating art that are making people feel a different way, or you're doing a lecture that makes people feel a different way. If you take your time away from those vices and actually put something positive back out into the world creative wise, you're going to feel way better doing it. You're going to feel good about yourself doing it. And in turn, those vices won't be as important to you, because you'll be focused on your passion rather than trying to drink your night away. Instead, you'll want to focus on your work that you're doing, or your jokes that you're writing, or whatever you're doing. I think one of the best pieces of advice that I can give people is all of your vices that you have, that you feel have become part of your personality, get rid of that and find something actually passionate that you can deeply care about, where those vices won't matter anymore. And what you're concerned about is your passion and putting something positive back out into the world again.
And you wake up every day happy to express that passion, to share that passion. I know that, like, when I was a hard alcoholic for 20 plus years, not that I would feel guilty, but it would almost be like every time I would buy it, do I really have money to spend on this? Or I've drank now, whatever, 28 days in a row. Maybe I should take a day off, or I'll have one more drink, or maybe she won't notice that I had one more drink. It was always like, it was just kind of like a dirtiness to it, where if you really put your time and energy into that passion, into being creative, you wake up, like, I wake up every morning at 3:30, 4, and then I have to kind of go back to sleep till my alarm gets up at 5:30, because like I'm literally waked up jazzed to fucking start the day, and I don't even know what the fuck I'm happy about, but it doesn't matter, because it's gonna be awesome no matter what it is, as opposed to just being, I don't know, like I guess I can drink. Is it noon yet? No, I'll have my first drink, or it's 5:00 somewhere. At least you're waiting for, like, it's. You got to have an excuse to fucking have that drink, or to have whatever, where you don't have to have any excuse to put out good energy and love. It's a cleaner way of living. And now that's also, I don't want to say alcohol is necessarily bad. The way I used alcohol was bad. I was addicted to it. I couldn't handle it well. Now, to enjoy a nice cold beer after a long work day, or to go fishing, or to have a glass of wine when you're celebrating absolutely. But I would have three bottles of wine and 15 beers and the whole bottle of whiskey like that. That's when you have an issue. So it's not just fuck alcohol, it's always bad, or every prescription pill is bad. With anything, it's the intention and why you're using it, how you're using it. Are you masking all the shit with it? It's just do the hard work now and stop pushing it down the road, and it'll pay off in spades.
It's all about moderation, man. Because I mean, again, even coming again from somebody else that was a raging alcoholic, now it's like I can have alcohol. Don't get me wrong, but again, like the difference is I'm not like I'm gonna have one more beer and she's not gonna notice. It's one of those things that like you actually enjoy it. Like for me now, it's like I'm not a heavy drinker by any means whatsoever, but if we go somewhere and there's like a local brewery, it's like I'm gonna go and get. Usually, I get something that's like the sours, where it's like the fermented fruit and stuff. And rather than trying to slam it and hide it and try to get the next one in before she notices you finish that one, instead you're just honestly, again, in the experience, in the moment, right, just sipping and enjoying the flavor of it versus worrying about what the after result is with you being buzzed. More often than not, it's like for me now, when I do drink, I do thoroughly enjoy the taste of like fermented things. So that's why I usually go with like the sours and stuff. But it's like I'll be sipping on it and I'll just be enjoying it. I won't even get a buzz from it. It's just I'm enjoying it, living in the moment, sipping on it, just enjoying my thing. Like everything's about moderation, man. And it's like you can't let it get the best of you no matter what. Not saying you can't enjoy some of the pleasures in life, but you just have to make sure that you keep yourself on top of it and make sure that you change that pattern and never go back. because coming from somebody that, used to be an alcoholic, I tell people that I have beers here and there now, and I'm sure it sounds bad to most alcoholics because most people that were in that realm, they had to cut it off completely and they never learned that idea of moderation. And honestly, going back to the whole psychedelics concept, I don't think if it wasn't for psychedelics, one, I probably wouldn't even be doing this podcast in the first place because I wouldn't have actually felt like I had anything important to actually say to the world. And two, I wouldn't be able to, again, even touch alcohol without wanting to go off the deep end with it, because I totally restructured that thought pattern in my head where I don't enjoy being buzzed, but I do enjoy the taste of it. So it's like sip in moderation and enjoy it and not let yourself get to that ridiculous level.
Well, I'm glad you did psychedelics because I'm glad you're doing the podcast. And it changes lives. It can save lives. And, like we discussed today, it can enrich him. So yes, it can save. Yes, it can pull you out of the dark. But once you're out of the dark too, it's a great way to to enjoy the human experience, and for whatever that is, good or bad. But I'm going to keep inquiring into our reality, and psychedelics certainly helped me go deeper.
I was going to say, man, I enjoy the fact that you did psychedelics too, because if it wasn't for that, one, the podcast wouldn't have started. Two, you wouldn't have written your book. We wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. And at least the last time you were on the show and this time you've been on the show, these are some of the deepest conversations I've had on the show. And this is like part of the reason why I started the podcast in the first place. So again, if it wasn't for both of us doing psychedelics, having this connection, we wouldn't have had this deep conversation. And from the way you made it sound early in the show and the way that I feel, it's like these deep conversations are what we crave the most in life. And if it wasn't for them, then everything wouldn't have lined up. We wouldn't be having this conversation now.
And who's it going to lead to? And that's where I'm excited. And then I would say this, I'd like to say beyond the podcast, let's stay connected. I'd love to hear more of your stories, more of your trip reports and shit like that. But who am I going to meet because of you? Who are you going to meet because of me? Who's going to read my book that's going to reach out that maybe they have a book? It's cool how this can keep expanding out. And I'm excited to connect with other people, and I'm excited to see where this whole thing goes. But I appreciate the time you spent with me. I appreciate you, kind of supporting my story and supporting my book. I definitely love to stay in touch just to see where your personal story goes. And let's just keep fucking doing it and keep sharing the love and keep being comfortable in your own skin and be comfortable hugging, kissing, crying, and kissing babies and all that shit.
Absolutely, man. And I'll definitely, even beyond that too, you're one of those people, man, I could have on the show an endless amount of times, and I'm sure we'll always have stuff to talk about. So once we get off the air, I'll have to give you my personal number and stuff, and we'll definitely have to make sure that we stay connected, man.
Cool. Yeah, maybe we'll do some like UFO, DMT, hunt, Bigfoot fucking session someday. And
oh, yeah.
Really,
Hey, man, we just got to plan it out and manifest it, and it'll happen, man.
Absolutely.
We will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And we are back, so let's hop right in. And for anybody that enjoyed this conversation, they want to connect with you, they want to check out your book, they want to see any of the work that you're putting out here, man. Where can everybody come and find your book? Where can they get in contact with you, and where can they follow you at, man?
It's social media. I'm probably most active on Instagram, Books by Adam Butler. As far as like my interviews and podcasts, I was just telling my aunt today, if you YouTube Adam Butler DMT, like, I don't know, I think like 15 of my interviews or podcasts come up. So there's some pretty good content there. And then as far as the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, it's all online. And then a couple months ago, I put out the audio book. So if you want to, to listen to it, it's on Audible. But I'm accessible. I'm interested. Like I said, I'm probably more interested in learning and hearing stories and seeing what I can kind of take in from this just as much as what I can, put out and share my story. So, if anybody has any good book recommendations, anybody else that, have like minds, definitely share with me and I'll share with you. I know I've got a pretty good connection now of really like-minded people that are, like I said, I'd be curious to see where we're all going to be in 5-10 years from now. And I feel like all we need is 1 or 2 or 3 people to kind of not make it, but, kind of bring us all up, and our words will be something hopefully people know in years to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you making the time to come on the show today, man. I'm really looking forward to next time and staying in constant contact because, yeah, man, after the last show and this show, man, it's the start of a good friendship, man.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
If you guys enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify. If you guys leave a 5-star review, I will read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. If you guys want to keep seeing the show organically grow, you guys want to keep seeing it so that more people come into the community. We have even more bigger guests that come on the show. Keep boosting up the show in the algorithms. I appreciate anything that you guys do. Leaving even reviews on Spotify, iTunes, putting the show on auto download, all of that contributes towards helping out the show to continue to keep growing. And of course, you guys can also share the show through word of mouth if you think anybody would enjoy this particular episode or the show as a whole. But as long as you guys are enjoying this show, that's what matters. And hopefully you guys enjoy the show to keep helping me expand the show organically. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me for any reason whatsoever, be it that you want to share some fan art, you want to have a conversation, you want to be a guest on the show, you want to have me as a guest on your show, you want to possibly sponsor the show, you guys can get up with me through email, social media, or the submission form, which is on the link tree. The email is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. As far as social media goes, Instagram is the one I am the most active on, but Facebook is also definitely a viable option for getting a hold of me. And every single thing that I mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.